Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Healthy Not Complicated podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about how you can lower your blood sugar in just 4 weeks. Now, this is a topic I am very passionate about because it affects so many people. I know that in America, at least 1 in 3 people has been diagnosed with prediabetes, and this isn't even scratching the surface because there are so many people who are walking around with high blood sugar, with blood sugar dysregulation, who don't even realize it. Now, signs that you have high blood sugar that you might not expect, or maybe you do, are if you have high blood pressure, if you have a large waist circumference, if you're just overweight in general, if you have high triglycerides, if you have low HDL cholesterol. These are all signs that your blood sugar might be elevated. Now, the good news is that you can correct your blood sugar. You can bring high blood sugar down pretty quickly. Now, of course, when we're talking about high blood sugar, we are talking about people with insulin resistance, whether it's diagnosed or not. We're talking about people with prediabetes, and we're talking about people with type 2 diabetes. We are not going to be covering people with type 1 diabetes today. The same tips I'm going to talk about in this video, they can be beneficial for those with type 1 diabetes, but type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition. It's where the body isn't producing enough insulin, and because there's not enough insulin when blood sugar goes up, then the body isn't able to bring it back down. Whereas for people with insulin resistance, with prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, who have high blood sugar, in this instance, it's caused by diet and lifestyle choices that the person is making. Now, I will say that some people are genetically predisposed to have higher fasting blood sugar, to be more likely to develop prediabetes, type 2 diabetes. However, just because you're genetically predisposed, it doesn't mean that you are automatically going to develop these conditions or diseases. It just means that if you and someone who's not genetically predisposed eat in the same way, you are going to become insulin resistant. Your fasting blood sugar is going to go up faster than the other person. You're basically just starting on the back foot to an extent. However, it's not a given. And once you get to that point where you have high blood sugar, you can bring it back down. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, blood sugar is something that I believe everyone should at least be aware about. Most people nowadays, well, I guess just most people in general, blood sugar isn't something they are thinking about until they get to the point where they're told they have high fasting blood sugar, until the point where they're diagnosed with prediabetes or even type 2 diabetes. Before that, most of us are walking around with no concept of what it means to have high blood sugar, what it means to have a blood sugar spike, what it means to have low blood sugar. We just don't understand it, but it should be something that everyone at least is aware of to some degree. Because when you're aware of it, you can make better choices. And these don't have to be difficult choices, but just better choices day to day that are going to help you to prevent your fasting blood sugar from going up. Now, when we're talking about fasting blood sugar, we're talking about your blood sugar first thing in the morning, when you haven't eaten, when you haven't done any exercise. This is going to be your fasting blood sugar or fasting blood glucose. So if you go to get your fasting blood sugar tested, they usually tell you to fast for 12 hours, don't eat anything before, don't have coffee before, nothing like that. And this will give you a baseline of where your fasting blood sugar is at. Now, throughout the day, to varying degrees, we all experience swings in blood sugar. Whenever we eat anything that contains carbohydrates, carbohydrates are broken down into sugar and they enter our bloodstream, and that causes our blood sugar to go up. Now, when your metabolism is working properly, when your blood sugar goes up, the hormone insulin is released, and insulin, one of its roles is to take the excess sugar from your bloodstream to the cells in your body to use it for energy, because at the end of the day, sugar is an energy source. It's a quick energy source. Carbohydrates, sugar, I'm using those interchangeably because carbohydrates break down into sugar, but they are an energy source and our cells can use them as fuel. So if you're metabolically healthy, then this is totally normal. What's going to happen, like I said, the excess sugar is going to leave your bloodstream. pretty quickly. Your body knows when your blood sugar goes up and it releases enough insulin to deal with it. But what ends up happening when we have high fasting blood sugar is basically the underlying cause is insulin resistance. So what that means is that the cells in your body, they are resisting the actions of insulin. So the insulin is coming with the sugar for your cells, and your cells are saying, nah, we don't want it. And that's what causes over time your blood sugar to stay elevated. Now, the reason that we get high blood sugar and that we develop insulin resistance mainly comes down to our diet. Now, there are other lifestyle factors, which I'll also touch on today, but basically when we are eating too many carbohydrates and too many refined carbohydrates, which means they're already broken down into sugar and they enter our bloodstream quickly, causing a big spike in our blood sugar. And when we're eating them too frequently, all of these factors in our diet contribute to insulin resistance. Because basically what's happening is our cells already have all the sugar in them that they need, and then insulin is coming with even more sugar, and our cells are going, hang on a second, we don't need this, we don't have room for this, and so it turns it away. Now, in the early stages, when you're first developing insulin resistance, your body will realize that your blood sugar is still elevated, and it will release more insulin. And this actually works. This is why people with insulin resistance, their fasting blood sugar will look normal for the first 5 to 15 years, because this excess insulin is able to keep your blood sugar in check. And this is why insulin resistance gets missed in the early stages, because if we were to test fasting insulin routinely, we would see that a lot of people who do have normal blood sugar actually have high insulin, especially if they're experiencing the symptoms I mentioned at the start of this video. Anyone who has skin tags, and I'm not talking about moles, I'm talking about skin tags. Skin tags are caused by high insulin. Anyone who has dark patches of skin in their armpits, around their neck, in their groin, this is another sign of high insulin. But anyways, that's just a bit of background info. If you already have high blood sugar, if you've been told that your blood sugar is just slightly elevated, maybe you've been told you have prediabetes, like I said at the start of this video, you can bring it back down by making some simple diet and lifestyle changes. And all of these changes come back to getting your body to need less insulin, because if less insulin is needed, then this is when your insulin sensitivity improves. This is when your cells are going to start to take in glucose as they should. And if they're taking in the excess glucose as they should, then your fasting blood sugar is going to come down. Now, I will say that before you try any of these tips, if you've been prescribed any medication that lowers blood sugar, you need to be really mindful of monitoring your blood sugar throughout the day, and you need to talk to your doctor and make sure that it's all being monitored, because like I said, you can lower your blood sugar very quickly. And if you are doing these tips, then less insulin is going to be needed. Your blood sugar is going to be coming down naturally. And if you're adding to that medications that lower blood sugar, then you could be in a dangerous zone where your blood sugar drops too low. But anyways, let's get into the tips. The first tip is you're going to want to take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before bed. And this actually has a direct response on your fasting blood sugar the following day. There are studies where participants have taken 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, diluted in water. That's very important. You don't want to take it just on its own, because that's just going to ruin your teeth. So put it in water, drink it 1 hour before bed, and this will bring down your fasting numbers. I think it brought them down in the one study I was looking at earlier, 9% the following morning versus with no apple cider vinegar. This is probably the easiest habit you can start to implement that can make a noticeable difference within days. And if you do it consistently over time, then it's going to have a big impact. And it's going to be even more impactful when you combine it with the rest of the tips that we're talking about today. And the next one, I know everyone rolls their eyes when I talk about sleep, but it's to get good quality sleep every night. And I know that's very arbitrary. That doesn't really tell you how to get good sleep, but don't worry, I'm going to get more into it. I have some practical steps for you to take. But first, I'm going to tell you why sleep matters so much, and especially in the context of our blood sugar. So when we don't get enough sleep or when we don't get good quality sleep, the following day, hormones are thrown out of whack, and particularly hormones that are responsible for our metabolism. So studies have shown that the day following a night of what they call low sleep, which is less than 6 to 7 hours that night, insulin and blood sugar are going to be higher the whole next day. So what this means is, of course, for today's purposes, when you wake up in the morning, your blood sugar is already going to be higher and your insulin is already going to be higher, which is not helping you to improve your insulin sensitivity. This is going to make it more difficult to control your blood sugar throughout the day, which is going to snowball into making it harder to bring your fasting blood sugar down. And on top of that, hormones that are responsible for our hunger cues, so ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, which is released and makes us feel hungry, is going to be higher, and leptin, which is the satiety hormone, which tells us when we're full, is going to be lower. So this isn't directly related to blood sugar, ghrelin, and leptin. However, of course, if you're hungrier, of course, if you're not getting the proper signals when you're full, it's going to be harder to make good choices throughout the day in terms of food. It's going to be harder to stay consistent with healthy choices you're making. And this is only going to have a negative impact on your blood sugar. So all of that is to say, sleep is very, very important. Not only getting enough of it, but getting enough quality sleep. Now, I have a lot of videos on my channel on things you can do to improve your sleep. I'll give you a quick rundown though today. So the first thing you need to do is you need to make sure you're giving yourself at least 8 hours of what they call sleep opportunity every night. So make sure you have 8 hours from when you plan on going to sleep until when you set your alarm in the morning, so that even if you're having trouble sleeping, you're giving yourself that opportunity to get enough sleep. And this is going to be the baseline of everything else, because if you are going to bed at midnight knowing you need to be up at 5, 6 a.m. the next day, then you're setting yourself up for things to be more difficult. You're setting yourself up for a day of higher blood sugar, of higher insulin. The next thing you're going to want to do is stop eating your last meal at least 3 hours before bed. When you do this, you give yourself enough time to digest that meal before you go to sleep. This is going to help you fall asleep faster. It's going to help you to stay asleep throughout the night. Your sleep quality is going to be better. Your stress is going to come back down to baseline quicker. This makes a big difference. I know it sounds a bit like it wouldn't matter, but it really, really does. Another thing, which I'm sure you've probably heard me talk about before, is getting sunlight exposure in the morning as close to when you wake up as you can. If you can get outside and get exposure to sunlight, can't be wearing sunglasses, can't be through a window. If you can do this in the morning, this helps to sync your circadian rhythm. It basically tells your body that it's morning time. Hormones responsible for energizing you are released. But what also happens is it sets a timer for when sleep hormones are going to be released later that night. So this cue in the morning helps you to actually sleep better. And on the flip side, you want to limit light exposure after sunset, because if you are exposed to bright lights, that can be, it won't be from the sun if it's after sunset, but lights in our house that are very bright, lights on our devices, these can trick our bodies into thinking it's still daytime. And this can cause hormones such as melatonin to be suppressed. So light exposure in the morning, light exposure during the day, ideally natural light exposure, so sun exposure, and then limit it after sunset. And you are going to see huge improvements to your sleep. And if you are monitoring your blood sugar every morning, start doing this and you're going to notice a difference very, very quickly in a positive way. And that also ties in with tip number 3 on how to lower your fasting blood sugar, which is to take a walk in the morning. Now, I just kind of touched on this, but Walking in the morning, this is going to be beneficial because you're getting that light exposure, which, like I said, this is going to help with your sleep, but also just getting a little bit of movement in can help to bring your fasting blood sugar down, because your body is using the excess sugar that's in your bloodstream to fuel it's not really a workout because it's low intensity, but it's movement. So by walking, this can help to bring down your fasting blood sugar if it is slightly elevated due to something like the dawn phenomenon. So 2 birds, 1 stone here. Taking a walk in the morning is going to help you to improve your sleep. And it's also going to help you to just get a little bit of movement in, to be able to use a bit of that glucose that's maybe sitting in your system. And this doesn't need to be long. If you can only do 10, 15, 20 minutes, that's going to make a difference. If you can walk for longer, then yeah, that's going to be even better. But even 10 minutes, that's going to be good. And now I want to talk a little bit about some of the diet choices that can help to bring your fasting blood sugar down. So the first one is going to be to prioritize protein at every meal. Now, at the beginning of the video, I talked a little bit about how carbohydrates are broken down into sugar or glucose. This enters your bloodstream, blood sugar goes up, but protein and fat are not broken down in the same way, or they're not broken down into the same thing, I should say. So protein is made up of amino acids and fat is made up of fatty acids. So different than glucose. So when we eat protein and we eat fat, it doesn't cause our blood sugar to go up, or not directly, I should say. So if you can get in at least 30 grams, ideally 40 to 50 grams of protein in at every meal, this is going to help you to control your blood sugar better throughout the day. It's going to help you to avoid blood sugar spikes. The other part of this is when you have protein, when you have carbohydrates on their own, they're going to be digested and broken down quickly. Of course, if they're refined, they're going to be broken down even quicker, but even complex carbs, they're going to be broken down fairly quickly in comparison to if you pair these carbohydrates with either protein or fat or both. Protein and fat will slow down the digestion, which is a good thing because it means that not all of the sugar is entering your bloodstream at once. It's taking longer to be broken down. And basically, when this happens, less insulin is needed all at once. And again, this is going to help to improve insulin sensitivity if less sugar is trying to be shoved into your cells altogether, if it's spaced out more. But the other part to this is that protein is great for helping to control hunger. And on the topic of protein, if you're tired of guessing where your meat comes from or how it's raised, and if you're like me and are trying to prioritize quality protein, sustainability, and convenience, then you're going to love ButcherCrowd. ButcherCrowd is an Australian meat delivery service that brings premium grass-fed and pasture-raised meats straight to your door, and also wild-caught seafood. Whether you're grilling up steaks, cooking family meals, or meal prepping for the week, ButcherCrowd has you covered with a variety of cuts that are as nutritious as they are delicious. Not only do they offer high-quality beef, chicken, pork, and seafood, but they also cater to different diets, perfect for low-carb, keto, and high-protein lifestyles, and for balancing your blood sugar. And the best part is, you can change, pause, or cancel your subscription at any time, so there's no reason not to give them a try. Plus, you can feel good knowing you're supporting sustainable farming practices. So what are you waiting for? Head to healthcoachkait.com/butchercrowd and use code KATE15 to save 15% off your first box. That's healthcoachkait, KAIT.com/butchercrowd, and use code KATE15, KAIT15 at checkout to save 15%. Enjoy the convenience of high-quality meat delivered to your door and taste the difference with ButcherCrowd. There's something known as the protein leverage hypothesis, which I think is really handy to know about. It basically states that we remain hungry until our protein needs are met, regardless of how much energy we've consumed. So taking it back a step, like I said before, carbohydrates, sugar, they are fuel, they are energy, but fat is also an energy source. Now, when it comes to protein, it can be converted into glucose and therefore can be an energy source. But our body has so many other needs for protein that it typically isn't broken down into energy unless absolutely needed. Protein is important for building and maintaining cells in our body, our muscles, other tissues. Basically, everything needs protein in order to function properly. So if we aren't getting enough protein in, this can cause us to remain hungry because our body is like, hey, we still need that protein. We haven't got it yet. Keep eating. And this is part of the reason why it's so easy to overconsume foods that only have carbs, only have fat, or have a combination of them. Think of something like potato chips or French fries. You know, when you've finished a meal and you still have fries on your plate and you're stuffed, but you can continually keep picking at them. That's because you haven't gotten in enough protein. Whereas if you were eating a massive steak and you got full, it's harder to pick at the steak. Yeah, you can force it down, but not in the same way that you can French fries or potato chips or something like that. So obviously helping to control hunger, this is going to be very beneficial because if you can control what you're eating a little bit better and more easily, then this is going to play a role in bringing your fasting blood sugar down because you're just more in control. Baseline, 30 grams of protein at every meal, ideally 40 to 50 grams, because throughout the day, you want to be consuming at least 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. So if 140 pounds is what is ideal for your body, then you want to be getting in at least 140 grams of protein throughout the day. So of course, across 3 meals, this is going to look like about 45 grams per meal. Now, this is leading into the next tip, which is to stop snacking. Ideally, you want to be eating 2 to 3 meals throughout the day and not snacking in between. And what this is going to do is in between meals, it's going to allow your insulin to come back down to baseline. It's going to allow your blood sugar to come back down to baseline in between meals. And again, that's going to help you to improve your insulin sensitivity and bring your fasting blood sugar down over time. Because if you're constantly snacking in between meals, if you're just constantly eating throughout the day, then your blood sugar is going to be elevated, at least to some degree. Depending on what you're eating, it could be bigger spikes, it could be smaller spikes, but your blood sugar is going to be more elevated than if you're not eating in between meals. And this also means your insulin is going to be higher in between meals. Basically, you just want to give your body a chance to digest in between when you're eating and just for all your hormones to come back down to baseline, like I said. If you do need a snack, if you are really hungry in between meals, well, first off, this is probably a sign that you're not getting enough protein in. So try to up your protein at your meals. But yeah, if you do absolutely need a snack, then reach for something that's high in protein and fat. Once again, this is going to be better than reaching for something that's only high in carbs or high in carbs and high in fat. I did a video a few weeks ago, which if you're watching on YouTube, I will link it above, of the best high protein snacks you can have. Like I said, no snacks is the ideal, but if you do need to have a snack, I'll link that video up above, and those are the best options. And this ties in with the next tip, which is to intermittent fast. Now, intermittent fasting, some people are very strict about it. I tend to have a more flexible approach. I don't think you need to be following a strict 16-8 schedule every single day in order to see results. What I mean when I say intermittent fasting is, well, intermittent fasting means you have a fasting schedule. So you spend time every day in a fasted state and in a fed state. Basically, what you want to avoid is eating from the moment you wake up until right before you go to bed. We already touched on stopping eating at least 3 hours before bed. And if that is all you're doing in terms of changing the time you're eating, then that is going to be intermittent fasting to a degree. That is going to be extending the time overnight that you are in a fasted state, which once again is going to help to improve your insulin sensitivity and bring your fasting blood sugar down. Now, if you can push back the time at which you have your first meal in the morning, this is going to help a bit more because, again, it's going to help to extend that fasting window. more time in a fasted state, more time in a low insulin state. Your blood sugar is going to be lower. It's going to be at baseline for longer, coming off when you're sleeping and obviously not eating. And this is going to only benefit you in terms of your fasting blood sugar. Now, the final tip is to just be smart about your carbs. And while I am a big advocate for low carb diets, while they are very beneficial and they're very beneficial for bringing your fasting blood sugar down, we've spoken about some tips on how to be smart with carbs throughout this video, such as pairing them with protein and fat. And if that is all you're doing, if you can just make changes to ensure that the carbs you are eating are going to be a better option, then that will make a difference. Now, if you can reduce carbs to below 100 grams, below 50 grams, that's going to help even more. Your fasting blood sugar is going to come down even quicker. But if you can just be smart about them, pair them with protein and fat when you are having them. Make sure to reach for whole carb food sources instead of refined ones whenever you can. That will make a difference as well. And we spoke about taking apple cider vinegar before bed to bring down your fasting blood sugar, but you can also take it before meals. And this helps to lower the blood sugar response to those meals as well. So if you know you're having a meal that is going to be high in carbs, just take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in water before that meal. And that's another way you can be smart about them. If you do everything I spoke about in this video, your fasting blood sugar is going to lower in less than 4 weeks. Now, if you can't apply everything though, that's okay. Applying even 1, 2, 3 of these tips will make a difference. Any little things you can do are going to add up. It's not about making giant, massive changes. It's not about going on a crash diet. It's about building these habits. That's what's going to get you the sustainable results. That's what's going to help you to lower your blood sugar and to keep it low. And when I say low, I just mean at a healthy level. I don't mean like hypoglycemic. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap this video up here. I hope you found this helpful. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to give it a rating and a review on Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.